This is my friend John Walker. Dr. John is a guy that's hung around these parts within 3 or 4 blocks, I think, for the past 49 and a half years. And he's roamed the country. I've hear tell that he's been seen as far south as Texas and as far east as, I think, Tucumcari, New Mexico. I guess that's the other way, isn't it? John is a retired professor from Wesleyan University. He owns and runs and manages and generally overwhelms us with Prairie Dog Music. Good stuff. Fine recording studio. And now he's going to overwhelm us with a little guitar. Go ahead, John.
Can't get it. You get the blues from having no money, up to a point. Tom Franklin told me you get the blues from having too much money too. You get the blues from having no girlfriend, boys. Somebody told me one time you get the blues from having too many girlfriends too. You get the blues, at least I did, in reflecting on the most recent presidential election. As they say in Ecclesiastes, all these things shall pass. This too. Standing in the corner, dollar bill in my hand, waiting for a lady who's waiting for a man to tell me how long do I have to wait? Can I get here now? Mama, must I hesitate? Ain't been to heaven, I've been told. St. Peter taught the angels how to jelly roll. Tell me how long do I have to wait? And I get you now, mama, must I hesitate? Now these are the kind of blues you want to stay away from. You can all manage to do it. Hesitation blues. Somebody throws you the ball on the basketball court. Don't stand around, wait around, hesitate. Go ahead on and shoot it yourself. Your buddies will just shoot them on so you left them head. All the good daddy for the shape of you in. How long do I have to wait? Can I get you now? Must I hesitate? Ain't been to heaven, I've been told. Streets up there are paved with gold. Tell me how long do I have to wait? Can I get you now? Must I hesitate? One more time. Hesitation shoes, Lordy, Lordy, got the hesitation blues. How long do I have to wait? Can I get you now? Or must I hesitate? That's a good idea, Rex.
wing you.
I know. Well, thanks everybody for being here, and thanks to Rex Walton for initiating and maintaining, supporting this series. It's really a good thing to do. Thursday night at Mutawa. If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me to ease my pain? If you needed me, I'd come to you. I'd swim the seas to ease your pain. In the night forlorn, the morning's born, and the morning shines with the lights of love. If you close your eyes, you'll miss sunrise that would break my heart in two. The lady's with me now, since I showed her how to lay her lovely hand in mine. Luke and Lil agree, she's a sight to see, and a treasure for the poor to find. If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me to ease my pain? If you needed me, I'd come to you. I'd swim the seas to ease your pain. Going back to Nebraska tomorrow, leaving on a summer morning train. As I pull away from oh, you beautiful mountain rainbow. Oh, oh, you aspen in the sun. Say to me, you stay with her tomorrow. Speak to me in my Nebraska home. For the singing fields of Nebraska wait for me. And flat, forgiving beauty calls me home. A Colorado river in my memory. Shine there someday like the morning sun. Hey, Colorado. Hey, you're my town here. I will not stay past tomorrow. How I wish to God I only home was here. How I wish to God I only home was here. Excuse me.
Got one more ringtail song?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking one more, maybe.
Yeah, one more ringtail song.
Ringtail.
Ringtail.
That's a genre. I don't know exactly what that means. Sounds a little bit obscene.
It's from Rhode Island, I think.
Is it?
Maybe.
Okay, I got some poets, writers coming right up. You guys are in for a real nice treat tonight. In addition to listening to Tom Franti read, you get to appreciate his yellow shirt.
Absolutely.
Gather round, friends, I got a little song. Ain't too dirty and it ain't too long, and that's righteous. That's a righteous. That's a righteous, righteous love, love, love. Want you some whiskey right off of the stove. Get across town and see Miss Sally Groves because she's righteous. She's a righteous, is that right, Tom? She's a righteous, righteous love, love, love. All right, John. I took it with a gal one time, she's all of 62. I thought that might be too old, but brother, I'm telling you, she was righteous. She was righteous, oh yeah. She was righteous, Lord, Lord, Lord. And I took it one time with a gal, and she was all of 22. I thought that might be too young, and I'm telling you, yep. Too young. That ain't righteous. No, no, no. So there you got it, friends. Now you got a little song. It weren't too dirty and it weren't too long, and that's righteous. Oh, that's a righteous. I said righteous, righteous, Lord, Lord, Lord. Thank y'all very much. Let's see here.
You got the volume cut down on this, or do you want to just?
I got this stuff on this chair over here.
He gets to come back later after he's rested up.
He'll be back.
He'll be back, don't worry. We will let John get away with this.
Okay, thank you. You're great, Dr. Jones. Okay, thank you.
You want to be first, second, or third? I guess this is a good time. Third again. Third? Okay, you want to be first or second? Third? He wants to be third. You want to arm wrestle? Whatever you want. It's up to you. How about second? Okay. You're first, Kurt.
Right, didn't ask me, I got told. Guess you know we're used to it.
We're diplomatic.
It was nice of you.
Get more hay first.
Get back later first.
You doing an introduction or do I decide? Okay, well, let me get out of your road.
That's not like they're doing it for police or classes, so I think
Notice how we do all this reorganization up here and it's invisible. You don't see anything. I don't. Not from here. Thanks, John. John Walker will be back up around 7:45 or so for another 15 or 20 minutes. So just, hold your song selections. If you didn't play something that you've heard before from John, then you can write that down and keep it and hang on to it and see what happens later. Next person up is a friend of mine, Kirk Brown. We met down at the South Mill, probably through Tuesdays with Writers. He decided that he would, I guess, resuscitate his poetry skills and decided to come in. I saw what? Okay, you never know what people are like in their private moments. Well, Kirk decided to come into the Tuesdays with Writers and make some of those moments public, or semi-public anyway, as far as poetry goes. We don't always have this big an audience, but this is fun. A fun night for that. Kirk has retired recently, a couple of years ago. He was a Solicitor General for the Attorney General's office, and he spent some time there. He spent some time in Texas working, a few years, and then came back to his home state of Nebraska. This is just a great place for us to have him come in, read us some old and new poetry, and generally reacquaint us with your famous voice. Okay? Kirk Brown.
Yeah, it's not my poetry. Rex just likes me to read the commercials.
That's right, read the menu.
Read the menu. Okay. First of all, thank you all for coming. I want to thank personally Rex for his invitation to read this evening, and just generally for all of Rex's good work on behalf of poetry and poets. I started writing poetry when I was at Lincoln Northeast High School, about 1.5 miles up the road, over half a century ago. And I've been writing, despite what Rex tells you, I've been writing ever since. That's what I've been trying to resuscitate, I guess. I've always loved being outdoors and observing nature. And as a gardener, a hunter, a fisherman, a hiker, and my observations of nature over that time have informed a lot of my poetry, concepts of time, cycles, life, and death. The other subjects of my poetry are generally the emotions and complexity of human relationships. So I will start with some of my natural poems. Cardinals. On a gray, late winter morning, you step out to retrieve the paper. You hear them, but you cannot see them at first. The trick is to look for them at the very highest places, the tops of trees or poles or roof peaks. They proclaim her coming. From their high perches, the cardinals witness what we below cannot. They see spring, her hair ablaze with sunlight, walking on the horizon just at dawn. And one of the other joys I have is making an annual trip out to watch the Sandhill cranes, and this came from the last trip out there. The numbers of cranes. Up from the Gulf Coast each March, they glean over 1,600 tons of corn from the fields picked last fall. And we drove for hours the gravel roads along the Platte River, glassing fields gray with them, going about their gleaning. Their bustles blowing in the breeze, their red caps catching the light, their wings flared, dancing in the fields, their warbled song filling the air for miles. Cascading from the sky at sunset, we watch 400,000 of them glide into their river beds. 800,000 long legs landing in water the color of mercury. Mid-August at 10,000 feet. Streams run clear and cold, filled with the sweat of winter's white work. The brook trout are feisty as they feast. Wildflowers explode from the edges of melting drifts and spill across the warming soil. Purples, yellows, whites, reds, inky blues. Each bloom fighting time for the attention of a bee. For in a couple of weeks, the snows begin again. The rains came, 2012. The rains came, finally. The clouds blew in full and heaving. The wind squeezed and tumbled them. Like wet kisses, the rain fell on the parched, cracked lips of the soil beneath. The wind moaned, the clouds moaned, the soil moaned. And when it was over, a tinge of green spread like a blush across the still tingling flesh of the earth. A place to rest. Walk up the rocky path, past where a glacier left stones the size of small houses and as white and as square as dice in casual piles. Then follow the trail past cliffs covered with columbine, where the stern, sheer face of Medicine Bow Peak crumbles into Lookout Lake, until you reach a small stone beach at the upstream end. Descend from the trail and spread there the parts of me that would not burn. Drop me into the clear water and let me settle upon the gravel, above which the trout swim, safe from the storms that blow over the ridge in the late afternoon. This is where my troubled soul so often sat and found respite from itself. And now we plunge into human experience. This is called To Dance. He knew her, but not well, the friend of a friend. But on the dance floor, blues blaring, almost without thought, he slipped his hands around her waist and pulled her hips gently back against him. And she came to him gently, their eyes never meeting, and they swayed there slowly, moving half time to the beat, as comfortable
as intimate as if they knew each other. Soap. Early morning in the shower, and the scent of my soap stirs a memory in the swirling steam of my awakening. A memory of her, long gone now. It was her soap before it was mine. I would bathe with it after our lovemaking. Soon it became my soap too, a choice made consciously, so that the scent of her soap upon me would not arouse suspicion when I left her and went home to my wife. Little girls, little boy. I was taught little girls are to be protected. Little boys are to be straightened out. Thus, by chance, I was blessed with little girls when fate thrust parenting upon me. Protecting them is what I believe to be my duty. Protecting them is what I set out to do. But beneath my deep voice and good intentions beat the heart of a little boy whose own straightening out had felt like rejection, and rejection had made him think himself unworthy, and that sense of unworthiness had led to lies. Lies told to steal from life the love he thought he could not earn. In the end, try as I might, I could not protect my little girls from that little boy. And the other thing that helps writing poetry is you keep getting older and you keep seeing things differently and having different experiences. This is a couple of poems I wrote having been with my parents when they passed. Rough draft. My mother lay there shrinking before my eyes, a tiny elderly woman being wadded up by the end of life like a rough draft about to be discarded by its author. The Monitor and I. For the better part of 3 days, I took turns talking encouragingly to what was left of my father. He would not wake up. He would not stop bleeding. My father told me nothing of his final journey, not even a knowing wink. He did not say goodbye. He would not squeeze my hand. My teacher taught me no more. So I stared at my new teacher, a single jagged line moving across the screen above my father's head, ever more shallow, ever more irregular, until it too spoke no more to me of my father's life. And it became as cool and useless as the hand I held. The Graying Gardener. I work new ground. I bury myself in the task. I bury myself with the roots of every tree, shrub, and flower. I dig little graves and place life into them. My sweat soaks the soil. There is an urgency about the work I have not known before. I no longer take for granted the next spring, the next summer, the next fall. Abrade and burn. When the doctor told me it was cancerous, it startled me. Yet I took it as a good sign he didn't ask me if my estate was in order. But a flaky patch of skin behind one ear was not psoriasis. Worse news than that, but not the worst news possible. I will live to suffer further medical indignities, slicing and dicing my skin into scars. I will no longer be as pretty, nor need I be. I am no longer breeding bait. I am just one of the elderly gentlemen waiting in the waiting room for a minor abrade and burn. '50th high school reunion. This is not an event burdened by pretense or aspirations. Whoever we are now is simply who each of us became, and we are much more prepared to accept our outcomes than we were prepared to anticipate our futures. Stories a half-century old are repeated like the liturgy of our clan. Each story is followed by the laughter of the survivors and amazement that, from where we began, we ended up where we are tonight, wandering this hall of friendly ghosts. Now, as Rex mentioned, I grew up in Lincoln, but I have recently moved to Omaha, and it is amazing what a change of perspective something that simple will give you. And thus I give you hometown. There is the schoolyard where the first grade bully humiliated me. There is the field where a poorly played baseball struck my face, breaking my glasses and my nose. There is the quiet street where late one summer night we parked and a kind young woman allowed me to lose the burden of my virginity. Her name escapes me now. Perhaps it escaped me even then. These are the houses in which I lived out my failed marriages. There is where my daughter and I stood 5 years ago when she told me she never wanted to see me again, and meant it. You can live somewhere so long, live your life so badly there, that every street corner has a lamppost against which leans an unhappy ghost. Chrysalis. I stand in my empty house staring out the patio door at the garden of my creation, the garden of my recreation, sleeping its winter sleep. The blue spruce still stand as tall as when I first met them and fell in love with how they sheltered me from the world. I was healing then. I had shed a shell of my own fabrication. I was still damp from that rebirthing, unsettled, unsteady, unsure. But here I found a task to create a garden, to discover it as I discovered myself. And the work gave me a purpose, and that purpose gave me hope, and the hope gave me strength. The garden is done now, and to a great extent, so am I. I will miss the daffodils in the spring and the parade of blooms that will follow in their season. But my soul feels steady now. My wings have dried, and I extend them, having found a kind breeze upon which to float away. Duet. For months now, maybe years now, the floor on my side of the bed squeaks. I noticed it most in the morning as I dress in the dark, the floor whining every time I shift my weight. My body has awakened, but your body desires more sleep, and I so want that sleep for you. Blessed rest, safe rest. Yet despite my concern, the squeaking floor has never awakened you. Perhaps it is a morning lullaby, a soft duet sung to your slumber, by my aging feet and the aging floor. The photograph. I have a wrinkled black and white photograph somewhere. In it, I am 3 or 4 peeking around the door, laughing. There was a time when that was the last photograph I had or could remember, that when I looked at it, I could honestly say, that child looks happy. Every snapshot since is of a child acting. Acting serious, acting happy, but always acting. 60 years of acting. Acting like a friend, acting like a lover, acting like a husband, acting like a father. It was exhausting work, all that acting, and one day I finally, mercifully, died of it. Today, when I peek around the door, the aged child that sees you there is not acting when he smiles. An unearned thing. I wish I could sing a song of my happiness, compose an ode to my contentment. But where, for decades, they were for decades merely dreams I chased but never caught. I was so uncertain of my place in life I could not make a home with anyone. That was then, and then now seems a long time ago. I no longer ask each stranger I meet what role I might play to please them. I no longer make love to earn love. I accept your love as an unearned thing, and my peace flows from that alone. And finally, hold your applause. In memory of me, may long-legged women I used to know, slipping into their satin-lined business suits, leave their panties in the drawer today. May the bears of the Wind River Valley note the absence of my scent on the breeze. Afternoon shadows climb their crags. May a robin sing me to sleep tonight from the bough of my redbud tree. And may the sun set softer on those I love, in memory of me. Thank you.
Let's have another hand for my friend Kurt Brown. Next fellow up is familiar to many of you that have been in the MFA program, low res, with the University of Nebraska, Omaha and Lincoln. It meets just a few times a year down at the Lead Center in Nebraska City, and then those individuals seeking a degree have to fire off their poetry electronically to somebody like Bill Trowbridge, who brought a lot of experience with him when he came to the program. He hangs out with lots of friends of ours, Karen Shoemaker and a number of people that teach and have taught there. And I know that Amy Flutner went to school down there a few years ago, and I think Bill was your professor for one quarter. And they had a really good relationship on poetry. And so, along with that, Bill has been hanging around Missouri for a number of years. He teaches at Northwest Missouri State. He drove up today. I'm very appreciative that he would drive up and see us all the way up in Nebraska. Luckily, the weather was good. We didn't have that cold, rainy stuff or any sleet or any hail or rain. I know you don't get that in Missouri, do you? So, Bill has published a number of books, 6 books and a number of chapbooks, and been published in a number of magazines. But the thing that I've noticed whenever I've heard him read is he always has a sly grin on his face. And he's one of the few guys that has what happens to be old guy superhero. So you have to buy one of these. I'm going to buy a couple if I could get to them. It's a comic book with poetry, or poetry with comics, or illustrations, I'm not sure. But Bill will explain everything, won't you, Bill?
Yeah.
Come on up, sir.
Well, thank you, Rex, and thank you all for being here. And yes, I did do a comic book, I'll confess right now, and I got a wonderful professional illustrator from Omaha, Tim Meyer, to do the superhero illustrations. So my publisher was nice enough to go to great extent to make this look exactly like a comic book. And the title is Old Guy Superhero, and so I'll start out with a couple of poems from that. The first one appropriately called Old Guy Superhero. The creative people come up with stuff like that all the time. Old Guy Superhero. Feels like a young guy in a bad costume. The arms and legs sag and the waist too tight. Where there should be a large S, golden star, or lightning bolt, there's what looks like a zero. And on his trunks, depends. The boots look more like flannel slippers. Some louts made off with his super hearing and x-ray vision, leaving only an amply ear and Coke bottle lenses. Like certain sheep, he doesn't fly so much as plummet. He hasn't smashed through a good wall or door since before he can remember, which is a little after breakfast. Speeding bullets and tall buildings must now be turtles and molehills. He has no fear of an erection lasting more than 4 hours. But he's depressed and often flatulent. His best tactic, the long wait, accounts for the demise of many a foe. That, or rambling on and on and on and on, which can paralyze from as far as 10 feet. He's not handsome like Clark Kent or rich like Bruce Wayne, but in the prolonged run, he can be a deadly opponent if he doesn't mix you up with someone else. Old Guy Superhero Counter-Terrorist. Old Guy's in line for his social security check when a man enters carrying a gun and wearing a suicide vest. Though people start to scream, Old Guy continues dog paddling through the shallows of his memory till the terrorist, noticing his scarlet cape and blank expression, shoves the gun in his face and asks how it feels to face certain death. Same as usual, says Old Guy. Mistaking the threat for a rare show of interest, which prompts him to dust off his 5 examples of why everything's gone to goddamn hell since Truman fired Custer. After a while, the terrorist's eyelids droop, and he slumps into a nearby chair, snoring. When the gun drops to the floor, Old Guy politely retrieves it, just as the SWAT team bursts in. "How did you do it, Old Guy?" asks the press. "Glue what?" he says. There's many more Old Guy adventures in the comic book. The rest of the poems I'm going to read are from my new book called Vanishing Point, which is also here on the table. This next one's called Last Words. You all thought about that? You have your last words ready, because you never know when you're going to need them. So just a little coaching on my part. If only for those you leave behind don't get forced to cram and get cut short. Like poor Max Baer, who noted, "Here I go." Or Pancho Villa, pleading, "Don't let it end like this. Tell them I said something." Ibsen, Hearing friends outside his room agree that he seemed better. Had only time to sit up and announce, on the contrary. Then drop dead. Beware the blind side, where you made it part like William Barton Rogers stopped midway through his commencement speech at bituminous coal. Or Dylan Thomas telling his White Horse Tavern buddies, I've had 18 straight whiskeys. I think that's the record. Or Union General John Sedgwick, confident they couldn't hit an elephant at this distance. If you favor wit, you're up against the pros, like Heine, who said his worried friends pressed around, God will forgive me, it's just métier. Voltaire, when asked by priests to forswear Satan, countered, this is no time to make new enemies. The Grand Pavlova quipped, get my swan costume ready. If 5 sentences your choice, as always John Q. Adams's, this is the last of earth, I am content. Or, in certain situations, Patrick Henry's, give me liberty or give me death. Though some say he followed up with, let me rephrase that. Or perhaps you'd simply like to underscore the world's injustice, like Thomas Grasso, who strangled one aged victim with her Christmas lights and said about his last meal, I didn't get my SpaghettiOs. I got spaghetti. I want the press to know that. Have you all been on the Tilt-A-Whirl? Remember the Tilt-A-Whirl, the deadliest ride in the amusement park, it seemed to me. You know, I grew up in Omaha, and I used to go to Playland Park in Council Bluffs and hit the Tilt-A-Whirl, and every year I would try to defeat the Tilt-A-Whirl, and there I would be up chucking at the end of the Tilt-A-Whirl. It speeds you in a circle on a wavy platform and at the same time whips you around inside that circle, wheel within a wheel, to quote Ezekiel. Each year I tried to master its gyrations, only to regurgitate with my corn dog and cherry Coke my youthful self-assurance. This dated wry contraption I now read can be a model for chaos theory. The spins of that inner circle, erratic as the bully who beat me up 3 days in a row on my way home from school. Guess, he smirked when I asked why. I thought he was a nice man, said Killer Perry Smith, right up to the minute I cut his throat. In Italy, a guy was killed by a pig falling from a balcony 2 stories up. Neighbors dined on free ham afterwards.
He was Jewish.
Some zealot plugs an Austrian archduke, and the world heaves up 8 million corpses. Hang on tight, the attendant shouts, as we brace for gravity's blind side. I'll confess, I was a philosophy major as an undergraduate, and I got really interested in a part of philosophy called epistemology, which is the theory of perception and knowing. And it always struck me, our perception changes the world as we move around. You know, the buildings get smaller or bigger as we move back and forth. You know, there's still a vanishing point, and it travels with us. And the horizon doesn't really, the sky doesn't really meet the water when you're looking at the ocean, but they do, to you, tell me that you are, and I am too. Vanishing point. I learned in an art class, 2nd grade, how to make my crayon portraits of our house, posted by Mother on their fridge, look more real. How the nearest corner of a square looks taller than the farther ones. How 2 parallel lines begin converging as the distance grows, till they vanish into the horizon. which changes as we turn inside the cone of our cognition, which moves each time we move, like Harpo mirroring Groucho in Duck Soup. It smacks of Plato's cave, this mortal dunce cap that shapes the world for us, keeps our cares life-size, and shrinks to indefinite to far away, like Wounded Knee or Auschwitz, or those figures keening in the streets and deserts on our living room TV. My father was a World War II veteran and was in combat much too long and came home with those scars that they call PTSD today, and you know, sounds, you know, dignified. They used to call it back in those days nervous in the service and make a kind of joke out of it, which it wasn't. But at any rate, you've probably seen films of the GIs coming home after World War II. They came in by boat on a ship, you know, in the New York harbor, and there would be huge crowds of loved ones and children and everything waving them in, and a big sign usually on top of a building saying "Welcome Home." So this one is called "Welcome Home." All I have is a black and white photo taken in our yard. My father holding me, him still in his khakis, me dwarfed beneath his service cap. Both of us looking as if the other might bite. Warrior and war baby joined by biology and chance. Him smiling stiffly for mother's camera. He brought souvenirs, his bayonet, a Nazi pistol, and a taste for Lucky's, bourbon, and rage. When he hugged, his cheeks scraped like sandpaper. How I thought a hero's face should feel. His slaps could blur my eyes. They say 3 months in combat fractures a normal mind. He'd spent almost a year, the details of which would stay off limits. We must have looked like aliens, my mother, sister, and I, so plump and washed and green. Our neighborhood, hospitable as Mars. Welcome home, one of the Martians must have said. In 1845, one Rear Admiral Sir John Franklin and a crew of 124 embarked to find the Northwest Passage. The passage so you could go from Atlantic Pacific without going the really tough way around, what is it, Cape of Good Hope, Cape Horn, I could get some mixed up. And anyway, it went through the Arctic region, and all of them died. And when word came back, he was still declared a hero of the British Empire for, you know, nice try, John. They were defeated. There's a wonderful book called The Arctic Grail, which was a long version of this voyage, and what seemed to have wiped them out was the fear of going native, which was a fear of any highly civilized nation out to conquer uncivilized people, or people they regard as uncivilized. You know, you don't want to become like them. That's the worst thing that could possibly, if you're in the British Navy on the kind of spearhead of civilizing people, you don't want to buckle under. Remember what Mutiny on the Bounty, remember what blew Mutiny on the Bounty? They got the Tahiti, man, and all that hula and all that stuff in there. They went native. So, Whiteout, this poem is called. For fear of succumbing to the ways of savages, the officers eschewed blubber for tin meats that leaked lead from the seams, refused parkas, choosing flannel coats that got soaked, then froze. They turned their backs on dog sleds and igloos, which also stank of going native. Something their store of Bibles, novels, carpet slippers, silverware, and button polishers assuredly did not. Finally, in place of blubber, protection from the scurvy that racked their bones, the still living, snowblind and starving, their ship bound fast in Arctic ice, gallantly ate the dead till the last survivor froze. Wordsworth once said that children come from heaven trailing clouds of glory. They also trail other things, it seems to me, if you've had children. Well, this poem is kind of about that. Some of you I know sent your box up and 25 cents out to Battle Creek, Michigan to get the really great stuff that you get. You know, you have to eat that whole goddamn cereal for like a week. And then anyway, this poem is called Send 25 cents plus 5 box tops. Not from Oz or Never Never Land, this was real world. Battle Creek, Michigan, the source. The first mail I got that wasn't a birthday card from grandma or a year's subscription to Boy's Life, picked by Uncle Al. There, in our mailbox, a brown paper package ordered by me, delivered to my 4-block universe after my reverse fast on 5 lousy boxes of Kicks and a month-long vigil. Inside, the Lone Ranger atomic bomb ring, exact replica, I was sure, of the one that won the war. The bomb was silver, with a red tail and a gold-looking ring with eagle wings on top. You could pull it off the ring and drop it from your model B-29 on Japs with their buck teeth and squinty eyes hiding in the shag. You can make an A-bomb sound kablam when it hit. Picture the glowing whoosh of mushroom cloud as playmates vied to give the coolest death cries. Thank you. So kids aren't always that nice. Falling. I've fallen and I can't get up. A granny cries on a TV ad that's now a punchline. Fall in, barks the gunny to his grunts who know they've fallen on hard times. And poets fall to writing odes. We mourn the fallen as our anthem plays. I will fall upon them like a bear robbed of her cubs, says Hosea 3:8. In Adam's fall, we sinned all, expounds the preacher, as we fall asleep in our pew. We'd rather fall in love, though that can lead to a falling out. Falling short of oxygen or blood can lead to falling dead. Caesar had the falling sickness. His death fell on the Ides of March, after which a fall befell the empire. With so much falling, our fallen world wastes no pity, falling through space on a downed old lady's sorry case. Snipe hunt. Anybody remember that? They went scouts and sent out to look for snipes. They don't exist if you're you young kids out there in the audience don't know this, but snipes aren't. The snipes are actually birds, but they're not said to be birds. They're some kind of mysterious animal. You're supposed to. The older hikers send the young stupid kids out to find them and get all messed up. Snipe hunt. On a night camp out, 2 old scouts, junior high age, handed us tenderfeet, sticks, and gunny sacks and sent us into the woods to hunt for snipes, which they said, smirking, were winged and sounded like piccolos. We took it as our mission, like those who sought the Northwest Passage or Machu Picchu. Would snipes be tamed? Would we win a special merit badge? Instead, we got mosquitoes and the scorch of poison ivy. plus a chilly douse of old boy yaks are welcome to the club that failed to find the bacon stretcher, souffle pump, sky hook, striped paint, canine pea spray. Let that be a lesson, our parents said, who learned to trust in what they had: the mortgage, faded sedan, steady work, prepaid plots. So we mowed the lawn, washed the car, wrote our book reports on Silas Marner. But after bed, sometimes we'd hear past our row of streetlights, snipes thronging skyward, moon-dappled, piping their extravagant song. Two more. This one is one more old guy superhero poem. This is called Old Guy Superhero Homie. Unlikely, but there you are. Old guy's on his way to the convenience store for a beer and a Slim Jim, but takes the wrong street and winds up in the barrio, where he's spotted by a carload of low riders who buck the car over the curb at him, stopping an inch away. Old guy's mind strayed back to when he could piss his name in dry concrete. But his blank stare is taken as mad dogging. The lowriders admire his big cojones and decide to make him a member. They give him a jacket, black leather, their name blood red on the back, the Latin Assassins, with room for his moniker underneath. They christen him El Anciano and try to teach him their hand sign. But his shaky version looks like the finger. They stare as he wanders off. "See that finger, man?" says the leader, turning to the others. "Don't mess with that guy. He don't give a shit." Soon, a cop stops old guy and asks where he thinks his gang ass is going. Old guy understands this as a request for his new gang sign. After he flashes it, a nurse says, "Try to drink this." But as he heals, word of old guy's ballsy gesture to the system feeds the legend of El Anciano, Fist of Fire. I'll finish with a poem about ladders. Not thought to be a poetic subject, but to me it's poetic, sort of. The poetry to me comes from observing that if you look at ladders, just go to the store, go to Walmart or someplace, they're covered with caution signs. And if you ever bother to read the caution signs, you're wondering who the hell needs to be told not to do that with a ladder. You know, any person with a sound mind probably doesn't need that coaching. But as you can guess, the ladder companies don't put them on because they like to put signs on. They put them on because of litigation. Somebody actually tried to do that with the ladder. So this poem is entitled Caution. Before using ladder, be sure both ends are secured against something solid. To climb down ladder, reverse procedure for climbing up. If disorientation occurs, stop and wait till help arrives. To reduce waiting time for help, call out, "Help! Help! I'm on this ladder." Do not use ladder to provoke oncoming motorists or attempt to board their vehicles. Avoid direct contact with eyes. If experiencing low self-esteem or other anxiety near ladders, say, "Get back, you ladder," 3 times. If ladder is found in rectum, Contact physician immediately. Thank you. Okay. All right, good. All right.
Let's have another hand for the ladder specialist. We're going to take about a 10-minute break here. This gives you a chance to refresh, reload, visit with some people sitting around you. If you see somebody you don't know, introduce yourselves. Bill has some books for sale. I'm sure you want to get the comic book. If I get one that's left, maybe I will be happy. If I'm not happy and you buy it and I don't get it, I will get another one sometime. So, circulate an initial and we'll be back in about 10 to 12. You can see all this on the front. Our tip jar is named Phil. You've heard of Phil the tip jar? Okay. I knew I'd get Jim back there. A few more items of business. Our favorite musician of the night, probably the year, my friend John Walker will be up shortly.
Decade.
And then we will have our benediction poem. As you know, this is Bill Clefcorn's coffee house. He spent many a day over there from about 12 till about 2 or 2:30 with his friends Leon Satterfield, etc. All the old retired heads from Wesleyan, and they would tell stories. And I think Bill's stories, it didn't really matter what he said, you just listened to the voice. And it was amazing. He could read the menu and people would stop at tables around and watch and listen. So one of those poems will be read by our pastor Terry, my friend Terrence Oberst, who reads one of these every month. It's a tradition that we fondly love and hang on to. After that, then of course we've got some more time to visit. If you want to buy a book, if you want to put some tips in the tip jar, get a drink to go, etc., etc. Beyond that, Dr. John, come on up.
Rex, start that tip jar. Yeah.
Fire that baby up, right?
It's been a long day. We'll fill it with a cold.
Well, thanks for coming. Enjoy your We don't enjoy yours anyway.
Something like the cover.
Hey, that guitar a little bit too loud.
It's a little like a little guy. You're getting old enough, it's not exactly fun You laugh to keep from crying. So true.
Just a second, gotta get my clothes on.
Having some white stripe here.
Check. Nothing quite like a well-tuned guitar. Reverend Moulton, you ready?
Fired up.
Where are you going? Say you're feeling blue, blue ghost is after you. Come to see me, baby, that's the one thing you should do. Come to see the doctor, get a prescription now. When you're feeling blue, baby, come to see me somehow. Now you go to the doctor, take all them pills, hang around with these Lincoln men and it don't cure your ills, you better come to see the doctor. Get your prescription now. When you're feeling low down, come to see me somehow. Here's the kind of medicine you're gonna get. Take all that aspirin too. See your physician 6 times a week. And it don't cure telling you, come to see the doctor. Get your prescription now. Call now when you're feeling blue, baby. Come to see me somehow. After you come to see me, baby, that's the one thing you should do. Come to see the doctor and get your prescription now. Cause now when you're feeling low down, come to see me somehow. Thank you very much. Might even read some poetry too. What a nice night, huh? brother and my sisters when I lay my burden down. See all my brothers and my sisters when I lay my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, when I lay my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, when I lay my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, when I lay my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, when I lay my burden down. Amen, brother. In the Cajun place, let's have some food. Let's ask each other, what's wrong with you? I've got a feeling, I think it's true. A larger number, between 1 and 2. On a limb, once again. On a limb, sink or swim. Feel the wind blow, cool and blue. A larger number, between 1 and 2. She says, do you want to just be friends? Do you want to fall in love again? Do you want to drown, rise again? Do you want to go down, sink or swim? On a limb, once again. On a limb, sink or swim. Feel the wind blow, cool and blue. A larger number, between 1 and 2. I got a letter just the other day, locked up in Cleveland, so they say. She wanted to be somebody new, and what she wanted came to be true. On a limb, once again. On a limb, sink or swim. Feel the wind blow, cool and blue. A larger number, between 1 and 2. She comes round when you don't call. Go out to find her, ain't there at all. She whispers to you, it will be fine. On a limb, one more time. On a limb, once again. On a limb, sink or swim. Feel the wind blow, cool and blue. A larger number, between 1 and 2. Yeah, well, it's getting close to 8 o'clock here. And that's the time, Central Time, when Steph Curry et al. Begin to dismantle the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I got to get home for that.
Why didn't they dismantle them last year?
Because Draymond Green messed up, one thing. And because LeBron James was unbelievable. Well, now they're going to put a cap on that nonsense. How? Courage, determination, and good humor. Traits, all of which Steph Curry has in abundance, as far as I can see. One more?
Yeah, child of God.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I can remember it. Well, thanks again, everybody, for coming out. And it's been a real pleasure for me. And judging from everybody's reaction to our readers, a pleasure for everybody. Thanks again to you, Rex, for doing this service for our community. If anybody asks you who I am, I am. Anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. If they ask you how I know, I know. If they ask you how I know, tell them I'm on love's journey. And if they ask you where love is, if they ask you where love is, tell them it's the darkest hour. If anybody asks you who I am, if anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. Where I'm from. Anybody asks you where I'm from, tell them I'm from Mother Earth. And if they ask you where I'm bound, I'm bound. If they ask you where I'm bound for the river Jordan. If anybody asks you who I am, anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. If anybody asks you where love is, anybody asks you where love is, tell them it's the darkest hour. If anybody asks you who I am, if anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. And if they ask you how I know, and if they ask you how I know, tell them I'm on love's journey. Tell them I'm on love's journey. Tell them I'm on love's journey. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Now the benediction. Benediction.
I know. He did make a mistake.
Another hand for John Walker. And now for the finale, finale, depending on where you're from. My good friend Pastor Terry will read the benediction poem from the Big Book.
Well, what a great evening. Dr. John and Kirk and Bill and Tom. Wow. Thanks for sharing your creations. Since it's the Adventist summer and it's baseball season again, I'm going to read a poem by Bill on baseball. Now, it's called Town Team. The team is Attica, Kansas, and the census, I do believe, is like 637. And it's a poem about middle-aged or so ball players who are rather rotund. So I will read it. It's called Town Team. The local jocks back home in Attica seem more than amply snug. At first base, a stomach extends itself to scoop a low throw, like a gun slug, from the dust. The shortstop moves like a sweet fat fairy to his right or left, his sneakers leaking ball bearings. Outfielders jog for several days to their positions, pivot like bloated ballerinas, doff their caps, then jog for several days back to the dugout. The infield is a squat and puzzle-gutted chain, round-faced and red, that chews its tongue and spits practically perfect daisies. The pitcher trembles the mound with a head shake. He wants another sign. The catcher, wide as a sand crab, sweats marbles. At the plate, a batter settles into his stance like a tender, untapped keg. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Terry. We'll be back next month. Meanwhile, be sure and stop in here for a really great meal. Fun times. Don't forget that Saturday they have the famous annual park. I think they block off this whole street. There are all kinds of things going on. Thank you to especially Bill for coming all the way up from Northwest Missouri someplace. Kansas City. That's close to Northwest Missouri for them. I appreciate that very much. We've had a great time with him and with Tom and with Kirk. And we still have some books for sale. The tip jar is not quite full if you want to help out some more. If you have already, thank you very much. We appreciate that, and good night.
Good night.